The Panthers return home, and Dmitry Kulikov will play in his 1,000th NHL game.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, January 29th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at @L_FLA Panthers, and on Blue Sky at LOFLA Panthers. You can follow the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And if you're watching this on the YouTube, make sure to press that like button. So Florida Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on the show to discuss everything in the world of the Florida Panthers. We have a jam-packed show where we are going to discuss more of everything that's gone on around the league, around the big blockbuster trade that happened this weekend, what that could mean for the Florida Panthers. And the Panthers are back home where they will take on the LA Kings tonight from Amerant Bank Arena to start of a quick 3-game homestand. And here to discuss that all with me on a Wednesday edition of the show, Jacob Winans is back here for another edition of Winans Wednesday. Jacob, welcome back to the show once again, my friend.
Thanks, as always, for having me. It's exciting to be recording a pregame instead of a postgame. We've done a lot of postgames, I feel like, so getting to preview the Kings should be fun. Seems like we just talked about them because of the game out west. Always an intriguing matchup. It was another good game between the two in LA, but as we know, the Panthers just can't seem to get a win in that building. So try to get some revenge and even the series tonight. And hopefully it's as exciting as the Kings' visit to Sunrise last year, which was easily one of the top 5 games of the season. That was an incredible hockey game last season. Absolutely.
One of the most fun games for sure for the Panthers. But that for the Panthers here, it's another opportunity to just build off of their season and hopefully just to get through, as right now we are still in the dog days of the season for them. But once again, the conversation around just the big blockbuster trade that happened over the weekend in the NHL, which, crazy enough, I was dual casting Rangers Hurricanes and Avalanche Islanders last night, and it's crazy. Mikko Rantanen had an assist last night at the same time of the butt goal that happened from Arturi Lenkinen on the shift that Marty Necas line scored in after Jared Bednar put Lenkinen up on the top line for the Avalanche. So it's crazy what happened of 2 goals being just separated from each other within seconds. But how does that affect the Panthers? That's why you guys come here for. But first of all, I want to get your reaction to the trade when you first heard of it. And second of all, I want to get your opinion on what does it mean for possible expiring contracts for the Panthers coming up for them, on what they could possibly do.
Yeah, definitely. My reaction to the trade was it was very similar to the Matthew Tkachuk trade, and the fact that you don't often see a superstar of that caliber moved off of a team that's very clearly a contender. I mean, Colorado has a chance. Every year that they have Nathan MacKinnon and Kel McCarr, they are going for a Stanley Cup. That's a team that has Stanley Cup aspirations. Mikko Rantanen is a superstar in this league. Make no mistake about that. He puts up a ton of points. He plays a solid 2-way game. He's a big body. He performs in the playoffs. And I think the common misconception with Rantanen is that he's just a product of Nathan MacKinnon, or he's kind of a passenger, and he's absolutely not. And he's also added in the past couple of seasons the ability to play some center as well. And he's a true superstar in the NHL. You very rarely see superstars traded like that. And even more rarely do you see that happen mid-season. It's not like Colorado's out of the playoff picture and dumping an expiring contract. This is a team that's still going for it. So it was pretty shocking to see that. But We know what the contract situation was. There were rumors that Rantanen wanted to be the highest paid player on the Avs. He was going to get more than McKinnon. Was going to get more than Makar. He's going to be the highest paid player on the team. And being the, and this is no knock on him, but being the third best player on that team behind McKinnon and Makar, it would have been tough for them to pay him that. He did come out and say that he was willing to take a discount well below his market value. He told that to a Finnish news outlet, but still, it's about cap flexibility and wanting for them to maximize their cup window, and it's going to be tough. It would be tough to do that, paying him what he's worth, and still trying to fill out the rest of their roster, which they've had a hard time doing the past couple of years anyway. They lack depth. That's kind of been their downfall, and they just had to pay Mackenzie Blackwood to kind of stabilize their goaltending. There's a lot of money going out, so it makes sense to go get a guy like Marty Necas, who's locked up for a couple of years at a very good cap hit and is a point per game player in his own right. I believe on a 90-plus point pace this season. So it's a perfectly good 2C, an incredible 2C, but really with term. He's a borderline first-line player on a contender. So he's a guy that you're going to get great value out of. So it makes sense for both parties. It's tough. If you're a Colorado fan, you don't want to see a guy who won a cup for you and a big part of your core go like that. But as Panther fans, we know the possibilities that there are when you do swing for the fences with a big trade like that. So I was shocked, but it definitely it's a smart hockey trade really from both sides.
Yeah. That 2015 draft where Connor McDavid was drafted first overall, which was held in our backyard, that draft looks so much better every single day with Timo Meier, Zach Werenski, Noah Hannafin, Mitch Marner for them. Just stacked for them. 7 of the 10 top 10 picks have been all-stars for what it's worth. And speaking of guys who've won Stanley Cups and the possibility of them being traded out, what does it mean for someone like Sam Bennett? Over a month ago, we spoke about the possibility of him being traded. At the time I said, and this was when Sam Bennett was hot, was you're better off keeping Sam Bennett on the roster and letting him walk versus trading him. Now Sam Bennett has fell back to earth, even though he's scored 2 goals in the last few games. So what does that mean for the Panthers then here? If you trade his contract, that would have the Panthers with their books at $6.51 million that for them. And the possibility is them graduating Lundell to 2C, giving them the possibility of over 23 players past the deadline, because you can still have more than 23 after the deadline as long as you're under 88 million. And it also less likely to trade away too much draft compensation in order for other teams to retain salary. The Panthers won't involve in anything in relation to the Chicago Blackhawks because all of their retained slots are taken up after taking Rantanen's salary. But there's also another thing about playoff Sam. There's also that risk for the Panthers. But there's also the other thing of doing right by the player for as well. There's a tweet the other day about the Panthers and possibly being interested in someone like Trevor Zegras. This could be their version of the Rantanen deal, because Zegras does have term on his deal, a year left. He is a little bit more expensive. He is younger for the Panthers, and Anaheim, who could get up to $70 million in deadline cap space, can retain a little bit of salary there as a depreciating asset for them. If you are going to trade Sam Bennett, I don't think you're going to go for a center unless you're sure they're going to stay long term. I still think they're going to go the defenseman route. I mean, I don't think they'll be in on Bowen Byram, because I think he's going to be dealt in a JT Miller, Elias Pettersson trade. I looked a little bit at Noah Dobson, but I think that the Islanders want to build around him too. But I also think about solidifying the blue line. And another name that I think that I've thought about more and more over the last day, maybe David Savard for the Montreal Canadiens. Although they are fighting for a playoff spot, I kind of see them like the Philadelphia Flyers last year. They were fighting, but it's about sticking to the plan, about what they're doing for their rebuild. For them, that's what I think that the Montreal Canadiens are going to do at the deadline. So what do you think about possibly making right for the player, and possibly what this does for the Panthers here?
Yeah, so Ranson being dealt kind of shows that anyone can be moved. If you're in an expiring contract, no one's safe, even if you are on a contender. With that said, I think if you look at Bill Zito's track record, I still lean towards more unlikely that Bennett is moved versus him likely being moved. Because if you look at Zito's track record here, you go back 2 seasons, the Panthers really were kind of an afterthought. And he believed in that group, and he didn't trade Radko Gudas. He didn't trade any of those expiring deals when he definitely could have gotten good value for them. But he believed in the group and wanted to give them a shot. And if they leave in free agency, which they ended up leaving, Gudas ended up leaving. It was a situation where you accept that result because you want to give the team the best chance to win, and he believes in that group. So I think it's more likely than not that Bennett stays through the season. I'm still not completely off the train of thought that Bennett gets extended. I think he's a player that the team or that the organization wants to keep around. And I think also just kind of his price tag has undoubtedly dropped at least a little bit from where it was early in the season when he was on a tear and over a point per game pace and on a 40+ goal pace. It's not going to be that anymore. I also think that Anton Lundell is showing that he's ready for the 2C job. I think he's had a tremendous season, and I don't think they want to block him too much. So it's an interesting situation there. But if Bennett is moved, it would definitely be for some sort of package involving a defenseman. I don't think it'd be for someone like Trevor Zegras. Not a knock on him as a player. The style fit might not be there. Trading Bennett gets rid of a lot of the Panthers' identity as far as the toughness, the gritty play style. And Trevor Zegras doesn't really bring that back. So it may be a difficult style fit. Definitely much more likely he gets moved for a defenseman, and particularly a defenseman that can play the right side and is right-handed. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. But I'm more than okay still with the Panthers deciding this is our group. We're going to play it out with them. If we're able to retain some of these guys at the end of the season, the Bennetts or the Ekblads, then we're going to do that. But if not, we gave it our best shot and we got a cup out of it. So I'm perfectly okay if they play this out and ride this out with them on the roster. But I would definitely say that it's not outside the realm of possibility that he gets moved now, because if Rantanen can be moved, GMs are open for business on expiring contracts, even if you are a contender.
I mean, hey, Wayne Gretzky got moved after winning the cup in Edmonton, so never rule out anything in the NHL for them. So who knows what could happen for them? And because it's so fresh for them winning the cup, I would lean more towards no of them moving, because it's been a while for Colorado. Maybe that's why they would make the move now versus if it was more recent for them. So just putting the thoughts out there on what could possibly happen. But we're going to continue the conversation here with the Panthers and we're going to discuss the lack of noise that the Panthers have made when it comes to the rumor mill there, and also discuss more about where their prospect pool is currently stands. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. Download the app and head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 59. Segment number 2 here on this Wednesday, January 29th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Winans Wednesday edition of the show with myself and Jacob Winans here. And it's funny, Jacob, there's this one Instagram page that I follow called Puck Empire on Instagram, and every morning they post like around 10 photos with captions on players and who could be involved with them. And every time I scroll, I never see the Florida Panthers there. And there's a little bit of me that just gives a little bit of a sigh with that, because I want to discuss something of what they're involved with. But that's also credit to the Panthers with how tight-lipped they are, which is a great thing for them. Elliot Friedman did discuss that the Panthers were possibly in on Taylor Hall, who plays the wing for now the Carolina Hurricanes, who was part of that Mikko Rantanen deal. But it was always going to be difficult with the money and the term. That's another thing for the term there for the Panthers, because they want the cap flexibility after the season for them if they do decide to go to the route of paying Sam Bennett or an Aaron Ekblad. But really, the Panthers don't have a lot to give, which is a little bit of connecting of what we did for the first segment, if you were to trade Bennett's contract and create some cash there. But again, the Panthers were able to up guys' stock like Devin Levi in order to trade for Sam Reinhart. But then there's also guys who have upped their stocks that they've recently drafted. Jack Devine, he's gonna average his point per game average is gonna go up this season than it was last season, with more assists this year than goals. That's awesome about him being a better overall player. But there's also that question, just like Yaroslav Askarov for the Predators last season, what's the path to the NHL for him? So that's another thing about a trade chip for the Panthers. Scott Wheeler has the Panthers as the 32nd ranked farm system in the NHL. So, and that's also a product of the Panthers, also what they did in the 2022 deadline, just trading those first round picks and not stocking up the farm for them. But Justin Sourdif is 22 years old right now. Seems a little blocked right now, even though he did make his NHL debut last year. I don't know if they want to give up on Linus Eriksson this early into his development. And I'm sure front offices are wondering what if Hunter St. Martin can continue this in future seasons than what he's doing this season. We taken the world by storm after D camp, rookie showcase. 29 goals in 44 games, though, for the 6th round pick for the Panthers. So that's another thing that the Panthers could help themselves when it comes to a possible trade that could possibly bolster their blue line.
Yeah, definitely. The Panthers prospect pool is ranked low, but I think it's more about quantity and superstar potential than it is about the quality of the guys they do have. There's no one really in the prospect pool that has high-end superstar potential. Mm-hmm. That really is the reason why the pool is ranked so low. But that's not necessarily what the Panthers need right now. Of course, you'd love to have more superstars. That's a given. But the Panthers have their superstar core set. It's really the thing to keep their cup window open is finding guys that can come in and be really good role players. And I think the Panthers prospect pool has some of that. I think there are definitely guys in the pipeline that can come in and be good role players when they develop up to the NHL level. I'd like to see a little more depth and quality on the blue line in the prospect pool. I think they've got some really good goaltenders in there. Bill Zito has kind of made it a point to at least get a goaltender per draft usually, which is always a good practice. They're kind of hit or miss, so giving yourself as many possible options there as you can is always good. Karol Gerasimyuk is the guy that I really like in the prospect pool as far as goalies go, playing over in Russia. But I'm definitely intrigued by the forwards. The Panthers prospect pool, they've got some good forwards that really opened some eyes during training camp. You think about guys like Sandis Vilmanis, he was very good in camp. Josh Davies was impressive. Looks like he could be a bottom 6 player. And then
wrecking ball.
wrecking ball, very Ryan Lomberg-like, and no one's going to forget him absolutely trucking Victor Hedman and starting a whole melee in that game. That was fun. But he's a guy that's intriguing. Justin Sordiff is still hanging around. He hasn't reached his ceiling yet and has some bite to his game as a two-way forward. Eriksson, a good pick, looks like a bottom six center that once he puts some weight on could develop. But it's guys like a couple of guys that are really interesting to me are the guys that played well in camp and earned themselves their ELCs. And you got Grayson Sachin, who I'm definitely excited about. I think he has NHL potential for sure as even a second line or third line player. Hunter St. Martin was probably the surprise of camp, and really left camp this season they couldn't not give him an ELC the way he played. He was fantastic in training camp, goes back to juniors and is now on a 40+ goal pace. That's incredible value for a 6th round pick. So whether they keep him or use him as a trade piece, that either way is a win because you don't expect that from a 6th round pick. The hit rate for a 6th round pick is extremely low. They rarely make it to the NHL. If they do, it's usually just a cup of coffee in the pros and mostly NHL or even ECHL. So that's already a win in Hunter St. Martin. Anything else is gravy, but he's a guy that I think has an NHL future. And then so Sachin, St. Martin, and then Jack Devine is probably my most, I guess the guy I'm most intrigued by as far as his skill set. Was a goal scoring machine last year and then comes in this season and becomes a playmaker and just assists left and right, among the top point scorers in the entire NCAA again, and has shown his playmaking ability. So now you've got a guy who has some real offensive talent as a goal scorer and as a playmaker, projects as a complementary wing, but he might have top 6 potential as a really good complementary offensive winger. So that's a 7th round pick. It's a low ranked prospect system for sure, but it's finding the value in the later rounds, guys who could be either great trade chips or guys who could be great complementary players when they get their chance. And the Panthers will definitely need that. Because the salary cap comes for everybody, and as guys get paid, you have to fill out the rest of your roster with ELCs and cheap deals. So I'm not reading too much into the low ranking. I'm looking more at the quality of depth players that we have coming up.
Yeah, and of the top 10 of the rankings from Scott Wheeler, only 2 of them are defensemen for the Panthers here. So with the lack of depth already on the pro roster, so you would think that it would be the forwards that would be moved more than likely in order to help with that for them. So that's something to look out for the Panthers on just how they've been able to just develop the guys and also know that they build up these forwards in order to still create more balance on their lineup for them. So we'll see more, which is still just over a month away from them. So we'll see. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we are going to discuss tonight's matchup between the Florida Panthers and the LA Kings, a special accomplishment for a Panthers defenseman that's going on tonight. And Matthew Tkachuk surprised a young fan last week. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. And Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I recently used the Game Time Picks to find tickets for an upcoming playoff game. Browsing through the deals was simple, and I found great value for all kind of seats around the venue. The super deal was especially impressive, offering the best value for the event. The app's features like great seats before you buy and all-in pricing with no surprise fees at checkout made the experience smooth and reliable. Plus, the on-time ticket delivery and lowest price guarantee gave me peace of mind. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Third and final segment here on this Wednesday, January 29th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So Panthers Kings tonight to start a quick 3-game homestand for the Panthers. They play tonight and then a back-to-back on Saturday and Sunday against the Chicago Blackhawks and the New York Islanders. First of all, I want to start with Matthew Tkachuk. Surprising a Kings fan who lost everything in the LA fires that went on a few weeks ago, including his signed jersey. And then Matthew Tkachuk surprising the fan with an autographed jersey of his own. And also, Matthew Tkachuk, I didn't mention this, is also partnered with Perry Ellis for the clothing brand for the Four Nations face-off coming up. So more Matthew Tkachuk in the spotlight for all the good reasons, Jacob. So great to see how he's giving back to a young fan.
Yeah, Matthew Tkachuk is a guy who a lot of people hate him off the or on the ice, but you can't really argue with what he does off the ice. He's a first class guy. Community is always benefiting from Tkachuk's presence. He's done a ton in the South Florida community, and he's just one of the most engaging superstar players that you're ever going to find, especially in hockey, where the personalities can be a little bit more reserved and less likely to be out there in the spotlight. He continues to put himself in the spotlight for all the right reasons, and just being such a fan first guy, and just talk about it all the time with hockey players that hockey players are very personable and just like regular people. But Matthew Tkachuk, I feel like, is the epitome of that. So I wasn't surprised at all to see him go out of his way to do something nice for a couple of fans out in LA, who everyone out there is going through some really horrible stuff right now. And for him to go out of his way to kind of make that better for that family was really cool to see. And just kind of speaks to the type of person and type of leader that Tkachuk is on this team and off the ice as well. It's really cool to see. And it's hard. It's got to be hard to hate a guy like that because on the ice, he frustrates the hell out of teams, but you can't look at him and hate who he is as a person. There's just no way.
Yeah, no doubt. So great to see that once again, he's doing the great things off the ice for him. That just, it's the two sides of Tkachuk, the on the ice and off the ice, two different people for them. So once again, Panthers take on the Kings tonight. The Panthers just recently saw this team recently. Only 2 games have been played since for both teams. The Kings have lost both of their games, one in overtime against the Columbus Blue Jackets and then against the Detroit Red Wings on Monday, which one of the goals was given to them by Moritz Seider knocking into his own net on Monday. But Panthers defenseman Dmitry Kulikov will play his 1,000th NHL game tonight. From drafted 14th overall in 2009 to multiple years of losing, an ownership change for the Panthers in between here, getting dealt for them after the Panthers lost that heartbreaker in Game 6 against the New York Islanders, which we spoke about who was on the ice for the Panthers. Kulikov, Okposo, Roberto Luongo, you name it, for both teams there. And then Stanley Cup champions, that sweep out of the crease that led to the game-winning goal, and then rewarded with a 4-year contract to make him a Panther lifer. Maybe, just maybe, we see number 7 up in the rafters. Right now I'm saying more of a Ring of Honor guy, but my mind can change. I'm allowed to change my mind later on for Kulikov. Just depends how everything finishes for him. But what an accomplishment, and never thought after 8, even before 2023-24, that he would ever come back and then have that incredible of a highlight play that led to the franchise's first Stanley Cup. So your thoughts on his 1,000th game?
It's remarkable. He's a guy who was drafted to be kind of a franchise defenseman and ends up sort of becoming a really good role player throughout most of his career. But he's he was a dude who was definitely thrown into the fire very early. The Panthers didn't at that time weren't really properly developing and growing their young talent, and he was asked to do a lot very early, and just had a ton of games under his belt at a young age. For him to be hitting 1,000 games right now is absolutely awesome. The fact that he's doing it in a Panthers uniform, I don't think anybody ever imagined that was going to come to fruition, but also that he's doing it as a Stanley Cup champion for the Florida Panthers. It's such a full circle thing for him to originally be a Panther, get traded from the Panthers, and then find his way back, and then accomplish the biggest moment of his career here in Florida. It definitely means a lot. It's super cool to see him get to do that. But just kind of looking at his combination or what's kind of built up into his 1,000 games, he has played for a lot of teams.
Yeah,
he's left his mark on a bunch of franchises. He's got the Panthers, the Sabres, the Jets, the Devils, the Oilers, the Wild, the Ducks, the Penguins, and back to the Panthers. That is about as cool a journey and a path as you can possibly have to 1,000 games. He's just a little piece of those 1,000 games is felt in a lot of different places on a lot of different teams, which is just absolutely awesome. We love to hear the stories of the guys who get drafted by a team and spend their whole career with a team, and that loyalty. And there was never any disloyalty from Kulikov. He never asked to leave. But him being traded and then just going through all of these different franchises and playing for so many different coaches and so many different systems and finding his way back, that's equally as cool as a guy who plays his whole career in one place. It's absolutely awesome. So big congrats to Dmitry Kulikov and his entire family, and then all of the Panthers who've played with him over those 1,000 games. He's definitely left his mark on this franchise and clearly a lot of other ones as well.
Yeah, and then for him not dealing with the rotating cast of head coaches for him in the in between when he was gone. I mean, starting off with Pete DeBoer there, Kevin Dineen after, Gerard Gallant, and then coming back for one coach and staying together with that. And looks like that the Panthers will have that solidified as Paul Maurice was extended for. We don't know the details of how long he's extended for, but just also we don't have the questions going year in and year out of how they're going to turn over management. And also right before, the year after he was drafted, that's when the Panthers really went scorched earth rebuild with trading Nathan Horton and getting a draft pick from Boston, and then using that draft to draft Gabranson, Quentin Howden there as well, and then thinking, okay, maybe this is the turn
too in that draft.
Yes, and Bukestad. They traded up 2 spots for with the LA Kings there with that one. And hey, this was at the time a lot of people were thinking this was the start of a young core for the Panthers building, and then just plateauing after, and then after still some belief in the guys around there like Barkov and Ekblad. And even part of it, Huberdeau at the beginning of the Bill Zito era, that for the Panthers, they were able to just manifest that into just putting that into a Stanley Cup champion, which again, I say this, although Dale Talon didn't finish the job, he put the ingredients together for the Panthers. I mean, he even spoke about it on Cats and Bolts that he would do the Bobrovsky contract all over again for him. And we had a lot to say about him with the Keith Yandel deal, what happened with the lack of action with Henrik Borgstrom and trying to make a trade there, but still he put some of the ingredients for Bill Zito to finish the job, kind of like Julien Brisebois did with what Steve Yzerman did in Tampa. So that's another thing there for the Panthers there on just how they were able to just finally win it, and then 4-year deal for Kulikov. That is to finish, and he's gonna have some type of coach front office role with the Panthers. I can't see a scenario where he's not.
Yeah, and he's such a smart player, and also just the fact that he's been on so many teams and been in so many systems and kind of been well traveled around the NHL, you can't buy that kind of knowledge. That's something that he's earned and developed, and I think he's been behind the scenes of so many different franchises. It's impossible for him to not have among the highest hockey IQs you could possibly find. So he's definitely got a future in coaching and management, whatever he wants to do beyond hockey. Beyond playing hockey, he should have that opportunity. But I love that he's gonna likely finish his career here in Florida after starting it in Florida. And also just this season in particular, he's taken on a bigger role than anyone really expected him to this late in his career, and he's done well with that as well. So you really can't say enough good things about Kulikov. He's everything you want in a role player, in a glue guy, in a unselfish, always contributing for the good of the team type of player. Panthers franchise all-time leader in hits as well, so he's got that record to his name, and his goal line save leading to the Reinhart Cup winning goal that'll live forever as one of the best plays in Florida Panthers history. They may not win a cup without him. So it's his legacy is cemented here for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And we can't wait to watch the ceremony prior to the game as the Panthers take on the LA Kings, who will be desperate going into this game. It's night and day for the Kings on the road versus home, 11-5 on the road, but they will be desperate as the Panthers looking to get going at home, as they've been a better road team this year. But Jacob, I want to thank you so much for joining me on another edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Tell everybody where they can find you online, my friend.
Yep, you can follow me on X at Jacob Winans 8, and we finally got some home games, so I will see some of you guys at the arena this weekend. Looking forward to that.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much, and see you next week.
Can't wait. Thanks.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Philip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.